What's going on, everybody? Happy MLK Day. This is Dante Carter right here on Beyond the Brands. A brother that works, a brother that hustles, a brother that doesn't sleep. He's always awake. And if you know what his company is, you already know what I just said. It's my boy, Kevin, CEO. Too busy to hate.
MLK is like I had a flashback.
For my white brothers and sisters, but black folks specifically, about what MLK Day means to them. Because it means so many things to so many of us. And it was just crazy. I'm gonna have to throw my logo back up there in a second, but I wanted to like share even like my Facebook post from this morning because it was crazy. Because I was really scared to post it. And I had my wife. I let her read it. She was like, "Oh, that's really good. That's really good." But I was still scared to post it. But it was the quote of MLK where he said, "There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor political nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him it is right." And I was like, "Oh, that's so deep." And so I went on to say that, for every moral stance he took, he carried the weight of his own sins. Infidelity was no stranger to Dr. King. It's difficult to know your hero has blemishes. It's also sobering. Neither of us are perfect. In fact, our imperfections make us the most human. I'm not writing to justify Dr. King's transgressions or attempt to take away from his legacy, but to remind you that he was just a man with a dream for America, a man who gave his life for that dream. I am a product of that dream, the first descendant of black slaves for my family to be born in this country with all my rights recognized by the U.S. government. Despite the social constructs still in place today, Dr. King's death reminds me that I matter. His death reminds me that the 56% of young black boys and black girls growing up under poverty still matter. It was just a, it was just a man that fought for me and spoke up for me when only God knew of my existence. If just a flawed person from Atlanta, Georgia can become the conscience of this nation, how can you also change the world? And I was just sitting back, because I was just in some, you wake up in the morning, you know what I'm saying? I was just sitting back thinking, I'm like, man, like everybody, what, 60 years later, everybody want to talk about his infidelity and all this stuff. And man, I'm sitting back like, man, like even with all that stuff, man, look at what he did.
And they didn't have social media. People and presidents was doing that.
Yeah, whole black family, that everybody knew about, despite the fact that there was no social media. So man, I kind of sit back in this city and I'm just reminded, man, like I'm a descendant of Georgia slaves. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of just hits you a little differently when you know where your family came from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you understand that. And I'm just like, man, like it just hits differently. And so I just kind of sit back on this day because I mean here we are sitting at this table and we are two brothers that own business. All the things that Lonnie Love said doesn't exist. We sitting at a table as those things, Said that because it's very obvious she didn't know what she was talking about, but that's neither here nor there. Well, brother, I'm just really excited to have you here. I'm
Appreciate
excited
it.
that we can be here on MLK Day and we can celebrate your success and the success of the grind.
Of procuring and stuff, so it wasn't like steering or
Yeah.
anything. So to get to the next level,
To
I'm
get them
having
numbers up.
yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
I'm 8 hours away from a master's. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
The guy taps me on the shoulder. From what I hear, boy, you're not doing your job. And I'm looking like, wait a minute. I just got an award. So in this moment, like that little ding that just went off, I had an
Yeah.
aha moment. I was upset, and at that time I had started Wake Hustle Grind. I ended up leaving the office on my lunch break to go pick up a $6,000 check from Trimco
Mm.
to make. I designed a logo with like the Twitter. I redesigned the Twitter logo and put like the Trimco roofing thing on there. And Trimco is like $1 billion company.
Yeah.
I came in and redesigned their stuff. I came to pick up a check, and I'm picking up, and I'm putting these shirt boxes in the car. I had so much that I couldn't even fit all of them in there. I had to make like a double trip, like an hour out. And
Wow.
that's when I noticed. I sat in the car and I looked in the mirror. I literally looked in the mirror in my car, and I looked at the boxes, and I'm like, I hired myself. I don't need anybody.
And then that, like your little trademark there, I hired myself.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and it started and it evolved into the Wake Hustle, and then everything that I'm doing, my business is always to help the little people first. Not like little people, but people starting out
Yeah.
to understand that they can do a lot with a little.
Yeah.
They can maximize their potential with like social media and everything today. They can do a lot with a little. And this what this magazine is about. It's about sharing advertisements, small business and stories of not just higher end clientele and bigger businesses and bigger brands that I deal with, but also if you have an Etsy,
Yeah.
I want to share that story and how you got started. If you're in your back kitchen whipping up hair gel for a product that you're selling on Shopify, we want to know about it and share that in the world with also with other big brands.
But see, I still feel like you downplaying this story. You know what I'm saying? Like, because me knowing you and knowing the stuff that you've done, I mean, this isn't. I know you're intelligent. I know you don't need a degree to show it, but I also know you come from some strong genes as well. You know, I mean, even the things that your father's been able to do. I mean, what has that been like? Because he's been a city councilman in Cleveland for how long?
Like 20, was it 17, 20, 18, 20, something like that. My mom's
And
10 years county council, somewhere around there.
so both of them.
Both of them.
And you worked on Obama's campaign.
I worked on twice Obama's, and I worked with the Democratic Party up in the.
You see what I'm saying? You be
Yeah,
downplaying
yeah,
all
I
this
mean,
stuff. You know,
I
we
just-
gonna get to the meat of it. You know, because I mean that just speaks to the level of work that not only you can do, but the load that you can handle. You know, Obama's campaign starting off. I mean, he was an underdog. It took all hands on deck to make what occurred. You don't elect the first black president
No.
without some long hours. And so I think that says a lot about what you've been able to do. But I mean, has it been difficult for you, would you say, coming out of your father's shadow? Because you've been able to carve out a niche of your own.
I look at stuff almost like chess moves. Like I'm not I like 15 steps ahead. Like I envision stuff 15 steps ahead, but I'm always thinking like 7 to 10. I'll think of like what if and how is this gonna look in years from now perspective. And one thing I got from my father, what I understood was hard work and being able to execute your vision is just compound interest in time.
Yeah.
Just because you started today as this, you're not going to end up as this. If you keep working at it, you're eventually going to get it. If you're alive and you keep working at what you want to do, you're going to get it if you continue to work at it. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Like, you will get it. First time my father got on, it took him, he was 10 years of just helping people out. Like, he wasn't even running anything genuinely. He started Harvest for Hunger. I don't know if you have it here, but the mayor, he ended up doing a deal where he ended up giving it to, like, the mayor back home. But he got proclamations for it. But he started Harvest for Hunger, which is one of the biggest United Way's programs. And I, as growing up as a kid, like how I bring my son everywhere, I was there watching him build it. And the one thing was, when he first ran for office, he lost by 80 votes. 80 votes in the community. And it was tough. And I remember my father said,
never again.
He said, not even that.
Yeah.
He said, you know what? I'm not, the better man won. I'm not going to do a recount. If that's what the people want for 80 votes, he said, I'm just going to work harder. So what he did, it's like it's snowing back in Cleveland right now. Snowing. I just never forget this day. It was snowing. My father got me up early. It was like 5 a.m., kicked me out of bed, like, get dressed. Like, what we doing? He said, we about to go campaigning. I'm like, oh, man, I know what that is. Like, I don't want to do this. I got to go door to door. So he takes me, and this is before social media. I might have been maybe like middle school.
Wow.
So he takes me out the bed. It's snowing, right?
Yeah.
And we go to the next door neighbor house, knock on the door. Hi, I'm Kevin Conwell. You know, you probably voted for me last time. I'm just here to say I'm going to be a councilman next election. He takes me on 2-3 streets in the snow. It's blizzarding.
Wow.
I'm in a, like, Daddy, I need to go home.
Just shivering.
And that stuck with me, saying, like, you may have lost on this one, but if you put in compound interest in the work, the next turnaround, you'll be good. And what ended up happening, the next one, he's got 90% of the vote. And every time he goes, he does that same strategy. And he's 90% of the vote because he actually cares and pays attention to what he's doing. And he actually listens to the people in the community and actually tries to implement something and what's going on.
Man, I'll be honest, and I think if we had, and this isn't a knock on anybody, but if we had more politicians like that, you know, what could many of our communities that we came from look like? Because I always sit back and think, like, man, you know, who would ever thought the boy from Rockaway Street would become the man on Nesbitt Lake Court? But it's like, why did I ever have to leave Rockaway Street? You know what I'm saying? Like, why did I ever have to leave? I shouldn't have had to leave. Like, what can we build there to where we not only do we attract, you know, some of the top black businesses and black minds, but we also retain the residents that were there, you know, to where there's that balance, you know, because if you've got the economics in your community, gentrification doesn't happen. You know, ain't nobody coming out to the suburbs gentrifying the suburbs. It just don't happen like that, you know. And so, you know, I kind of just see some of those things, and I'm just like, man, that's why I'm really proud of what you've been able to do, because it takes guys like us willing to step out on that lane, on that limb. Because I mean, people look at what we do and they're like, oh, you know, y'all showboating, y'all doing this, y'all doing that. But it's like, you gotta. Life is about risk. You know, you will never get to the reward if you're not willing to take the risk. That's just the reality of the situation.
My partner from Vintage Tunes last night, DJ Wiz, one of my mentors here. I've been working with. He's kind of been guiding me along. Good business partner, but he kind of guides me along with certain things I got to do. He's worked with Keith Sweat, Keith Robinson, the whole nine. And last night he said, man, 2001, because I was just in LA
Yeah.
and I had an event to go to, and I did my event at the dope store, and I'm
Yeah.
coming back to Atlanta here to come link up to do this coalition DJ thing, and I got an opportunity to go to this big convention in LA if I stay another day.
Yeah.
And I told him like, man, I really should have stayed another day. Like you said, opportunity waits for nobody. Then he shares a story with me and says, look, man, I was on Rap City in 2001, right before the towers fell, and I met up with Damon John.
Mm.
Remember Fatty Girl?
Yeah.
Fatty Girl. So he's like, I'm already producing for these other people. I got a meeting with Damon John before Damon John was like Damon John. And he's like, I only had enough money to go back home. I didn't have anything to stay in Manhattan and stay out in New York for another day. And he's like, you know what? I left for the day. And I look up and he says, like, what if I would have stayed that extra day? And like you said, take a leap of faith and bet on me.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it, man. People on the other side have been betting on themselves for how long? I mean, they
Yeah,
bet on themselves and they came to America and took it. You know what I'm saying?
that's true.
Like, at some point, we got to be bold enough to say, you know what? I believe I can get it, and I'm willing to fight for it. Because if you're not willing to fight for your, like, I don't believe in fighting for your seat at the table. I believe you got to be bold enough to build your table, and have these folks come and sit down with you. You know, because I mean that's what it's been like for me. You know, I got, man, my whole first year in business, I was running around trying to get a seat at everybody else's table, and it was kind of like you got the scraps. Like, oh, I think we can use you. Maybe we can use you. Can you do this? You know what I'm saying? And it's all small stuff. And you're like, man, I gotta eat. You know, I'm tired of ramen. You know, can I get some shrimp too? Like, that's just how I looked at it. And eventually, I was like, well, what can I do? Who can I pair with and build something that's not only gonna make money but change our community? And lo and behold, we were two jokes at first, and then you know Gerald and I just kind of took off, and I think, I tell him this all the time, man. I think what we've been able to do is just divine. Like, God has really had his hand on it. And I just believe that, man, when you take that step out on faith, man, God will bless it. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at the men in the early Bible, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, what did they have to create a living? All they had were their hands and their head, and it was what they used between them ears that created the outcome they wanted. And so I just think we got to stop selling ourselves short. We got to stop, feeling like we need to get our resume right so we can work with a certain company and start, to your point, betting on yourself, hiring yourself. We are just,
That's
I just see so many talented minorities, black, Hispanic, Asian, so many talented ones. And I'm like, man, we just got to bet on ourselves a little more, you know?
like, if I could give some advice to people, and
Yeah.
now I've done this too as well, and it's always you have to look at what you need to do now to take care of home. But some people, they have an advantage. They don't have families like us. They can really maximize their time. It's like, if you don't have a kid or something, you should have no excuse to not be successful. If you're healthy and you're breathing,
Yeah.
you better eat on a dollar menu or something and figure it out. But you
Yeah.
can be smart. Like, there's things like Uber or different things that you can do if you're not a felon. It's certain things that you can do to make money. It may not look great while you're doing what you're doing, but you can do things to make money. And hustling isn't about being prideful. It's about being effective and making money and getting a job done.
But I went to I went to the summit at Morehouse. It was called How Entrepreneurship Can Eliminate Recidivism, and it was a guy, and it's so crazy. Like, he was the smartest guy on his block, and he saw his cousin robbing these stores, and he said, "Man, you keep doing X, Y, and Z. Why don't you do A, B, C? Not only will you spend less time robbing the store, but you can make more money." Well, police realized that his cousin, the thief's whole crime spree had changed. It changed his whole direction. So when they finally caught him, they asked him what changed. And he said, "Oh, my cousin let me know what I was doing wrong, and I fixed it." Well, they ended up arresting his cousin too, and so he spent 4 years in prison for that.
What?
Yes.
For telling them like you doing the you hitting the licks like this
Yeah,
wrong?
they
Oh
they
my God.
he was a party to the crime, and
That's
so he served 4 years. So, but he was so smart. But when he came out, he couldn't get a job, and then this guy that owns a lawnmower company hired him, and he's looking at what this guy does, and he's like, man, I could do this all by myself. And so the guy was doing all this talking reckless, was hard on him, yada yada. Well, he was getting contracts on the side, building everything up. And he finally came to his boss one day and said, "I'll buy your company from you." And the guy's jaw dropped. He's like, "You ain't got enough." And he called the number out, bought the man's company, started running it. And what he started doing is teaching uh, uh, felons how to come out, start their own businesses. And he's got, gosh, I think it's over 200 felons who've come out of prison, and they making all making over six figures. And
That's good.
yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, but that comes from that desire to bet on yourself. Because I sit back and look, man, like, when I was a kid, I was doing, I mean, man, single parent household, I mean, was broke, man. And I'm out here trying to find ways of making money. And I know my mom had to think I was selling drugs or something, because I was just coming home with, you know, 50, 100, $150 a day. And she's like, "What in the world are you doing?" I was working for Teens Against Drugs and Alcohol. And, like, I got to a place where I had a system, because for every candy bar you sold, which was $6, you got $1.50. So I'm like, okay, well, and my mom had just got laid off at the time. So I'm like, all right, how many bars do I need to sell to make $150? You know what I'm saying? All right, got that. What communities do I need to go into to maximize on that? Because I got to a place where the guy that was dropping off, I told him, "Look, this ain't a good area for me. I mean, you need to take me up 10 miles up the road." Like, I had it all broken down.
You learn business 101.
But that's my whole point. And when you start to realize what you know, it's like, man, like,
I share that same story with you because on my book that I'm working on, Hustler's Thesis, my first chapter is you do in school, right? They give you the candy box.
yeah,
Right? And I'm like, all right, I'm competitive. I'm like, they're like, if you sell these many candies, you're going to get a Sega Genesis.
yeah,
I'm on that. I'm going to get it.
yeah,
So I go in my little area down the street and I knock on the doors. I don't get anything. I come back, I might have made a few sales. But this is where I learned. This is what happened. This is what all business people need to learn when they jump out and start.
yeah.
How you start is not how you finish.
Yep.
You learn things to maximize and switch.
But what they got to realize is we fail every day. We fail every day, and it's so crazy because when I was speaking to a group of students at the Florida PRA meeting, Public Relations Association, they were asking me to explain the time when I failed, and I didn't know how to answer it. And it's not that I didn't know how to answer, but I'm like, I fail every day. Like, every day I've got a PR campaign that isn't successful. But when I realize it's not successful, I'm what? I'm audibling. I'm changing it up. I'm constantly looking at ways of, okay, how do I change this?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, back to your
Exactly.
point. I mean, if you got to get used to failing to stay in this space. If you're not used to failing, you're not gonna make it. Go back to your 9 to 5.
I look at what the competition is doing, and going back to the candy situation, like when I got back to the classroom, I asked the kids. One girl came in and she crushed it, and I go to her. I said, "How did you do that?" I asked the question, "How did you do it?"
Yeah.
She said, "Well, my mom went to her office and she got everybody to sell it." And I said, "Boo."
Bingo.
That's how I'm going to make some money. So I went on the block. I got the kids across the street. I got my mom to go to, it was Twin Value back then or something, to get some candy. And I hustled up and I started my own candy business off of what I learned from that real quick. And I went back door to door. And people were like, "You back again?" I said, "But this time, you don't have to place an order. I got the candy right now." And I maximized it and put a street team together to maximize what was going on. But I learned from my failure to ask questions, how to pivot and how to move forward.
But I mean, that's what it comes down to. Because think about it, man. When I was doing this, I knew I knew if I wanted to maximize on the money, and I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I need to get out. I needed to be out there with some of those beachside properties where I knew people had money, where I knew people were probably more likely to say they were so accustomed to everybody upcharging everything that $6 for a little candy bar didn't seem like a big hit. You know what I'm saying? It was about understanding where that target audience for these sales were going to be, and I used to sit back and like when I told my mom, she was like, "What you did is genius." And I remember we went into this community, dude, all white community, man, all white, was one black family, and I remember I knocked on the door and the black dude was like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing?" And he was like, "You don't need to be doing this." And I didn't know what he was saying then. I know now, but I didn't know then. At that time, all I could know was what? I'm hungry. My mama just got laid off work. We got bills that need to be paid. I'm the man in the house at 14. You know what I'm saying? That's what I knew. Those were the four things that resonated in my mind. It had nothing to do with what he was talking about then. What he was saying then, which speaks to me now in the future, is do this for yourself. You taking $1.50 and you giving them $4.50, but you doing all the work. You doing all the work. And I'm I'm doing the work, my team is doing the work, but I'm getting the majority of those profits. I flipped it. You see what I'm saying? And I mean that's where we got to get to because when you start to understand how this system in America works, if you're not a force in the game of economics, what are you doing?
But that's what we need to tell our young people.
Yeah.
Because what I was upset with was this. They told me, go to college. Okay, I'm going to go to college. But when I was 18, I already was making money and doing my own stuff. And I was smart enough and responsible enough not to blow my money. But going to school was, my parents' heart. You need education. So I'm going for the education lane. And like you said, we get out and nobody wants to hire us.
But they don't want to hire us because what?
Experience. So
No,
they
no,
say.
no. They don't want to hire us because if you think about it, and this is why, and that's why I like studying cultures. At the end of the day, man, it's a very simple issue. White people work with white people, black people work with black people, people work with Hispanic people, Asian people work with Asian people.
People work with who they're comfortable with.
That's right. And they usually work with what? The people who live around them. So when they talk about black on black crime, well, you also got to talk about white on white crime. You also got to talk about Hispanic on Hispanic crime because all these things tend to happen to who? People you live around with. And so my whole point is when you start to understand when you see many of these Asians, whether it's Vietnamese, Chinese, they all create pockets where they do business together. And so if you start to see that, what do we need to do? We got to create pockets to do business together so that we can what? We can hire people from within our community. Because we're the ones that are going to be more intentional about what that black community looks like. Who has jobs here? Who has jobs there? We're the ones that are going to be more intentional. And that's why Dr. King said after integration, I felt like I put my people into a burning house, because we started leaving what we had built for things that didn't belong to us.
Well, I don't think I see the shift I was talking about in the barbershop earlier this week. I don't think the shift is we don't not want to do good. We want to do good.
Mm-hmm.
One, we don't have the understanding to know how to do good.
I agree with that.
And here's the thing that I see. I know when I did my research on how do I want to market,
mm-hmm.
like in the magazine, who do I want to market to in Target? When I saw that hair and cosmetics and apparel, like hair and how we look as black people is the number one thing we spend money on. Number two is apparel. And when I did my research on that,
we don't own those companies.
We don't own, and two, I looked at, okay, we own a lot of service businesses.
Yeah.
Within the black community, we own a lot of service business. And here's the thing what they were talking about in the barbershop. I come into your restaurant. I don't give you 5-star service because I look at you like, okay, you're black, I'm black. Shut up, dude. You take it or leave it because this is just how it is. So our service is bad, not just in Cleveland, Atlanta, Detroit, New York. Our service amongst each other is down. So a lot of times people say, well, I want to go somewhere with better service.
Yeah.
So they'll try to go somewhere to get that service. So how do we get our service
What
standards?
I think, and this is coming. You know, there's a great book. It's called Brainwash by Tom Burrell, and he's a black PR guy, owns his own company. He's done work for a lot of big companies, and he said something that made a ton of sense. We also gotta understand that as African Americans, you know, when we were freed in 1865, we were freed without resources. You know what I'm saying? Like there was no resources that were given to us. It was pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but we ain't even got boots. You know, there was a plantation in outside of New Orleans that my wife and I went to, and the descendants of those slaves lived on that plantation until 1975 as sharecroppers. Yeah. So you think, man, we had the civil rights movement in the 60s, but y'all was still on the plantation. So when you think about,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying, how far behind we are, like there has to be, we have to reprogram ourselves to see the value within ourselves. And Tom Burrell called that the black inferiority complex. He said from the moment we stepped foot on this land in 1619, there has been uh, a campaign against black people. And so the problem is we don't own media companies. You know, we don't own platforms like these to where we can start to share our own stories because we have to change. We have to set the whole value. That was the reason why I took on the R. Kelly case. It wasn't about taking down a black man. It was about showing the value of black women. It was about saying, look, man, I love you. Your voice matters. There's no reason for me to be a black man married to a black woman, have a black daughter, and not see an issue with that. You know what I'm saying? Like I should be one of the first ones on the front line screaming at the top of my lungs that something ain't right here. And I know, Gerald and I took some heat because folks are like, well, y'all keep saying black women, black women, black women. Well, black women are what? One of the most underrepresented women
True.
in that space. So
True.
we got to call it for what it is. I'm not saying it doesn't impact other women, but the reality is they don't get the same TLC that
No, they
everybody else
don't.
gets in that space. And so until we start to see value in it, and just because we say black doesn't mean it's bad. It's just saying that look, since since 1619, we have not gotten the respect in this country, the love in this country. I mean, this country didn't even give us the resources once we were freed. You know, I mean, the 40 acres and the mule, we lost that once Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And so it's like once you understand the historical context of what has happened here, you realize, you know what? We got to go a little harder because you go down to the Georgia State Capitol, and what are the monuments they have around the state capitol?
True.
It's the demons of the Dixie. You know what I'm
And
saying?
my father, not to switch over, switch back.
Yeah.
My pops actually has been changing names of schools in the community. Like Patrick Henry,
Yeah.
that's now, who did they change that name to? I believe it's Stephanie. Don't quote me on it. I got to double check, but I believe that's Stephanie Tubbs.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of our Congress people who she passed away.
Yeah.
But
But we got to do that stuff because what is it? I went to my middle school was Stonewall Jackson Middle School. Anybody that knows who Stonewall Jackson is knows that's a slap in the face to send a bunch of black kids to that school because what he fought to uphold, if he would have won, we would still would have been in chains. And people keep saying, Civil War was about slavery. It wasn't totally about slavery. It was about who was going to run this country economically. And we understand that
yeah,
the Confederates were winning the war, and the only way to cut off their cash crop was to free them slaves. You really understand what that whole battle was about. But it's like, man, like at the end of the day, we gotta, to Burrell's point, we gotta reprogram ourselves. We gotta, at some point, we gotta start pushing back against the narratives that are set. And so when I see these things, I'm going hard. I'm like, man, like
I
my
think
wife
it
is
starts
gonna
with
see.
the youth.
Yeah, my wife's gonna see her value. My daughter's gonna see her value. Cause I mean, you talk about your father taking you everywhere, man. I walk in the meters with my kid. I mean, my kid's daycare is gonna be closed for till Thursday this week. You know, cause they got some water pump issue and they can't have the kids there. And so my wife is scrambling. I'm like, man, she just gonna ride with daddy this week.
And
You
that's
know?
how I got a lot of my deals done starting off with my son. I literally I had to go shoot it was at a bar too, and I had to go shoot like a tailgate. And I literally had my son in I put him in his little Buckeyes outfit. And he looked like a little Buckeye.
Yeah.
And I had him in the thing rocking him while I'm doing my interviews and shooting at this place. And they looking like, you got a baby here? I went far to where the pool table was, away from all the like drinking and smoking and all that. And I had my son in there on my arm doing interviews and getting the job done.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, I'm like, look, hey, sometimes sitters come up, but I'm responsible. I couldn't find anybody to switch out with me, but I said I was gonna be here. Now I'm gonna be here, and it actually made the video actually go good for them because I had my
Yeah.
son in a little Buckeyes outfit in it, so it kind of was
Yeah.
kind of cool thinking outside the box, but it kind of made for cool media.
But you got to be able to do that stuff because when you understand what it takes to be not only just successful in business, but successful as a family man, to be that father, when you understand those things, that's when you're making a true impact because what you're able to do with your son, what is he going to do with it? He gonna take what you did and run with it and run even further. You know, a lot of people get mad at Trump.
Yeah, that's the goal.
You know, they like, oh, he ain't pay his taxes. He was broke. He was this. He was that. He ain't a real business person. It don't matter if he was a real business person or not. His daddy set him up. When are we gonna start setting our kids up? When are we gonna start putting them in places where they can be competitive? That's the way I see this stuff. We got to compete at all levels of this thing. You know, I'm not talking about competing just on
Sports
in
and stuff,
sports
yeah.
and entertainment. I mean, the way I see it, there's no reason why we dominate entertainment and we don't have black executives. Like, and I'm not saying one or two or three. I mean, across the board, black executives should not be the minority in
Like
entertainment.
10 Tyler Perry.
Yeah, exactly. There shouldn't. There's no reason why there's no black NFL team owner. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason for that stuff in industries because at some point you gotta redirect that money where back in our communities because if you don't do that, we don't have a fighting chance. And I think it just perpetuates the just what happened to us when we came here. You know, and all this stuff is interconnected. And when you realize that, you're like, you know what? Because that's the one part of Dr. King no nobody want to talk about. When he talked about the redistribution of wealth, you know, like, I mean, he was going in. And, I mean, he had a point, you know. We were brought here to be the labor force. I understand that. But we're educated now. So, I mean, it's a lot. See what you got me doing on MLK Day?
Yeah, I mean,
See what you done did?
like, it's like crazy. Like, I'm actually down here on MLK Day. And it's like, when I was younger, I always wanted to come to Atlanta, but just never was able. I never really had like any family down here, so you know, coming out and meeting people and talking to people and start getting into networks down here.
Yeah.
It makes it refreshing to meet good, genuine business people and good family people. To meet good people down here, because Atlanta gets a bad rap outside of Atlanta. Like as far as you know, everybody wants to just flood to Atlanta, but I'm like, it's actually like a lot of good opportunities here if you're willing to come here and put in work. You can make something happen.
And you know, one of the things that I love about Atlanta, honestly, is I you know, it was almost like when I went to the HBCU because I didn't grow up in a predominantly black area, and I think you know when you're in those places where you see the diversity within the diaspora. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you go to HBCU and you got black skateboarders, you got the black rock stars. You know what I'm saying? It lets you know that you know what, I don't have to conform. I don't have to have my pants hanging off my butt. I don't have to walk around with cornrows. I can literally be the person I want to be. Like right now, I got on a women's shirt. You know, respect, protect, and elevate. You know, sex trafficking organization. You know, and I mean that's what I'm passionate about, and us being able to say, you know, we can be who we want to be. We don't have to live out these labels that were placed on us. I mean, because a lot of these narratives were written and they weren't written by us. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You can't take a minority of a stereotype and place it on the whole population of people. Like
yeah, they try.
you know what I'm saying? So, because it's like I done got to a place where I walk into board meetings with hoodies on now, you know, and folks are like, "Oh, you here with a hoodie on?" Yeah,
You
like,
have to do that.
You gotta change it in their minds.
Yeah, you have to switch it up because like I had a blockchain meeting. Not blockchain. You familiar with blockchain?
Yeah.
So funny thing was I work with my guy Peter Cimarroni. Back at home we do a podcast called Blood Time.
Blood Time.
And yeah, so it goes over wrestling. And
Uh-huh.
how I met him, it was crazy. I was at an event and I met him, and you know, long story short, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna help you out with your podcast. Now, I'm black. definitely he's an older white Italian guy, and I didn't think he would even accept what I'm doing. But he's like, you know what? I'm gonna bring you around, and I seen your work. You're amazing. Come on, let's go. So now I'm starting to share him in my network, the people he's sharing me in his network, and a lot of these stories that I'm starting to see is very, very similar.
Oh yeah.
It's scary,
Yeah.
and I'm looking like, you know, Peter didn't even have to bring me around all this stuff. And so he's like, I got a blockchain meeting, come to it. Switching over to the clothing thing on a tangent. But I go in and he's like, wear a suit. And I'm like, and I tell him like, and he owns a suit company. So I was like, I have like 2 suits that I wear like when I'm going, but I don't have anything that's like, dressy because I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, not that I don't want to do that, but it's not part of my brand. So I stay within my brand when I go places. I go in my comfort zone. Unless it's like the president's thing and a ball and I have to dress up, I won't do that. So I went in and I went to the place and I was like tried to dress to fit in and I was like so uncomfortable. And I just told him, I said, you know what, next time when I come to this thing, I want to be within my comfort thing. Now he accepts me. He's starting to accept me for me because I'm telling him like, I get what you guys got going on, but if you're going to work with me, like you're getting me. Like I'm not acting or pretending to be anything else. You're going to get good work out of me. This is what I wear. Get comfortable.
I mean, I wear suits. Like if it's to your point, if it's a ball or something, if it's a high level meeting, if it's somewhere
Yes,
where
that makes sense.
Yeah, where I need
Getting
to.
a check.
Yeah, like yeah. I need. Okay, the best version of myself will be there. But if I'm walking into the office, if I'm walking to a networking event, at the end of the day, I want people to understand that those same kids that y'all afraid of, that's me. You know what I'm saying? Because me and my neighbors, we done got into it a few times.
Yeah.
You know, because they just be on some other stuff. And but for me, it's all about ensuring that these little black boys that y'all keep calling suspicious, that y'all keep like that's me, that's me. I got into it with one of the reporters here in town. She was like, "Man, you harp on all these issues and they're not the same." I said, "Those are black boys. That's me. Period. Period." So, and and I want them to also look back and see me as well and see, okay, well, if he done left from where we are and done made it there, we can do it too. And I think it's just really it's super huge to be able to make that impact because that's the stuff that changes communities. Us trying to
We
be
don't
something we not don't help any. It doesn't serve a greater purpose.
being a role model, not just saying, hey, in the limelight, I'm a role model, but actually being a role model for the younger generation to look up to say, I can aspire to be like him or better.
Yeah.
I have a lane to go into. I feel like growing up, I didn't have anybody in my peer group that was doing what I'm doing now that I can see doing what I'm doing. I just knew that what I wanted to do, I was just fortunate enough to make up my mind, and I knew what lane I wanted to do, and by any means, I'm going to do it. But a lot of people don't have that luxury. Like, I remember my friend Derek Forrest, like, growing up, he's like, man, I got all this talent. We've been in school, and I want a job, and I really want to work somewhere, and I want to do this, but I can't get out of Cleveland. If nobody gives me an opportunity, what do? I feel like I'm in a trap, a mouse trap. I'm doing everything I need to do, but nobody wants to get the opportunity. And a lot of these kids and youth voices are like this. They want to be great. They just don't have the opportunity to be great, and they don't have the people to look at that's around their age group and demographic to say, I can be great too if I do these things.
Yeah, and they don't have the resources to go to places to see those people. You know
True.
what I'm saying? And I mean, because that's a huge part of it. I mean, dude, I didn't start thinking like this till I was 28 years old. I sit back sometimes and I think back, man, the hustle has always been there. I did it when I was 14. Why did it take me another 14 years to say, you know what, I want to do this on my own. I'm going to do this on my roadmap. I mean, the person who changed how I saw this was my father-in-law. He owned his own veterinarian clinic, black guy, one of the first black veterinarians in the state of North Carolina. He just did it. Folks told him he couldn't do it. He did it anyway. And it's like, it's when you get around guys like that, it changes because I mean, think about it. This is 2020, and we're still saying the first black to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's
it's
crazy,
crazy.
bro. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And so when you get around somebody who's done it, you just start thinking differently. You like, for me, I was like, look, let me just make sure my wife is cool. But this dude about to get his 2 week notice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You gonna get this 2 week. You know.
You have to see. Like my thing is this. I know my roadmap, but two, I have to see things. Like just going to LA and do this event. I'm like, man, I'm seeing all the Lamborghinis, all the. I'm like, man, I want a Lamborghini too. I'm working and inspiring. I want that too. I work hard, and I'm looking, how can I get that? And I'm understanding now is we do have to work hard and we do have to hustle. Now at our age, it's about partnering and working smart and leveraging and understanding how to position yourself for the next 5 to 10 years.
But that's business though. The top 200 brands in America are owned by 6 companies.
Yeah.
They done leveraged each other to create 200 brands.
Yeah.
Back to the leverage you talking about. But you only do that if you understand business.
True.
That's the only way that stuff comes from. And so what I'm seeing is I see a group of people spending, what, trillions of dollars a year? But you don't see that result in their community.
True.
What happens if we start leveraging each other?
True.
That's all I'm saying. Because I see it. You know what I'm saying? I see it. It's easy. It just takes us getting to this place to what Burrell is saying is reprogramming ourselves. Let that knob turn. Because, I mean, think about it. Me and you got an Atlanta to Cleveland connection. What happens if we get a Detroit and New York connection? What happens if we get an LA connection? You know what I'm saying? All these different pieces just start moving. And that's what it comes down to.
The way social media works now is like, you know, you have to use that as a tool other than just entertainment. You know, actually go in there and actually talk and network with people. It's kind of like funny. I'll grab my phone. I'll leave voice messages to people like, hey, I'm not a robot. I kind of like your content you're putting out. Reach out to me if you want to reach out. If you don't, I understand you're busy. But, hey, I'm just reaching out. And there's nothing wrong with just reaching out to someone to say, hey, I see what you're doing. We may be busy right now, but I see what you're doing. Yeah. And I find value in that with networking with me. That works. Like how I got in Atlanta right now was networking on social media. Mm-hmm. Someone reached out to me for work, and then they just ended up referring me to people here.
Yeah.
All off social media. People I never even met, and it was just taking, like you said, a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Getting on a plane, spending your own money, and just going out and doing what you need to do.
But that's all it is, man. That's all it is. Everything you do as an entrepreneur is a leap of faith. I had a guy from my church reach out to me. Said, look, man, I don't know what you got going on, but I see we got some synergy. How do we make this happen? And that's all it comes down to. Frank was like, dang, Kevin is doing this, Dante doing this. I see synergy. Let's see if they see it. And what happens? Yeah. Like, that's what it all comes down to. How do you make it work? So, but yeah, man, we got to wrap this thing up, man. This has been a really good conversation. Really good. What are your final thoughts, partner? Yo, we'll just stick with final thoughts. Some of you are trying to use big words. But what are your final thoughts? Where can people find The Grind Magazine? Where can people tune in and catch you?
So they can go to wakehustlegrind.com. Wakehustlegrind.com.
Wake Hustle Grind. Got the whole brand.
Wakehustlegrind.com or thegrinddontstop.com. Uh-huh. And that's a collection of blogs with, I use a lot of trending media. So a lot of, up top when you come to the site, it's more so like a blog where anything that's trending, basically like Shade Room or Baller Alert, anything that's entertainment value that my target demographic likes, it will be there. But also in between, I have small business ads and things like, the True Laundry Wash. Mm-hmm. I'm doing some business with a distributor out of Cleveland. Their ad is in their tax services. Yeah. You know, normal things that don't get a chance to be on mainstream media, placed around smaller brands so they can get the opportunity to get hits and brand recognition.
That's what's up.
Beyond the brand.
Beyond the brand. And tell them your social handles, because you got like 12 of them.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I gotta like niche it out. But at Wake Hustle Grind CEO and at 3KP Marketing, that's the main ones you can reach me at. The number 3KP Marketing.
Yeah.
That's the main place.
And don't forget, y'all need to subscribe, y'all need to like, y'all need to comment. We're on all the social media platforms. You can watch a rebroadcast of this on YouTube, and you can also check us out on wherever you find podcasts with eStream Live. So look up eStream Live. You'll find all my content with Beyond the Brand. You'll find Gerald Griggs' content with Justice Fighter Radio. You'll find Scotty's content with Conversations Create Change. And so, yeah, man, we got a lot of good things coming. We got Dom coming on here with all the hip hop.
And before I cut you off, I just want to shout out my wife, Tierra Conwell, my son, Kevin Conwell Jr., my whole family, Kevin Conwell, my dad, my sisters, Shout out to everybody back in Cleveland.
Shout out to everybody.
Vintage Tunes, Rip, see you guys. Dope Story.
Frank Wiley, we see you.
Frank Wiley, Jackie LA, Power 10,
we see you.
Power 106, and everybody.
What's his name? Old boy that dated Lisa Left Eye, the football player. He used to play for the Falcons.
Oh.
Yeah, Andre Rison, we see you. He from Cleveland. Yeah, I'm just saying, we're going to shout him out. Let's just shout him out.
So this has been dope.
Hey,
Appreciate
man, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you making time here. Y'all, stay tuned. We got some dope content. We're all about telling stories of entrepreneurs, and letting you know how you can get it going, and just what this walk by faith looks like. So tune in. I'm Dante Carter with Beyond the Brand, right here on Justice Media Network. Peace.
Cool. That was dope.
Dope. Huh?
Ooh.
Yeah. Dude, we went longer than I thought, man. We were just talking.